Okay, everybody, you're all very welcome to this to our webinar tonight, our milk quality webinar. My name is Vincent Griffith. I work in the Farm Profitability Programme. For anyone that doesn't know me, what we're going to talk to tonight about. We've three very good speakers. We have Richard, Starrett, and Wendy, who are the NDC and Kerrygold overall milk award winners for 2020. And it's the first time in Aurivo milk suppliers have won it, and it's the first time a farm in Donegal has won it. So we're all very proud about that. So Richard is just going to go through his system and how he runs his farm. I suppose we're going to talk a little bit about, I suppose, why he won the competition. We've Magella McCafferty in, who works on the program with me, and Magella's going to, I suppose, she was very heavily involved with Richard, so she's going to talk to us a little bit about the competition, but also around controlling mastitis on our farms. And finally, Paul Cullinan, our milk quality advisor, is going to talk to us about cleaning milking equipment, both the bulk tank and the parlour. And I suppose the big topic with that is, and I suppose as everyone will be aware of, there is a lot. It's going to have to be done in the future without the use of chlorine detergents. So Paul is going to go through that with us. So I suppose just to kick it off, I might just ask Magella to just give us a couple of minutes on, I suppose, the competition and how Richard progressed through it and how he won it. So I'll hand it over to you, Magella.
Okay. So the NDC and Kerrygold is a national award competition, and it identifies the top farmers in the country. So they're shortlisted to either the top 10 or the top 11 by judges after each co-op in the country nominates who they think, I suppose, would be good ambassadors for the region. So there's a number of areas that the judges come out and they judge. It's not just milk quality, and it's not just cell count. It also is an overall farm. So the animal health and welfare on the farm is a massive area that they will assess. Continuous improvement as well. So where the farmer has started, the investment so far, where he's invested in his money, how he has brought himself on, his own training, is he involved in discussion groups and continuously improving himself, and how he demonstrates that. The dairy parlour and the milking facility is extremely important. His hygiene protocols, exactly how he's milking his cows, his antibiotic use, all the different areas, I suppose, by producing milk in the most sustainable and hygienic way possible. His pride and his passion for farming. So what actually drives the farmer, what his passion is to produce top quality milk and where it comes from. Sustainability in the environment is a massive part of it. So all biodiversity, ecological, maintaining all of those practices that you need to do in farming, while at the same time ensuring that the environment is always looked after and protected. Hygiene is number one, and producing top quality products in the most sustainable and efficient way. So it's not just milk quality, it's an overall ambassador role for the farmer.
So we might, so thanks very much. I think you've given us a flavour of what the competition is about. So I suppose, Richard, your farm is obviously very well known in Donegal. I might just ask you to just explain where you're farming and the type of system that you're running, Richard, at the moment.
A farm just outside Lufford, here in Donegal. It's a spring calving herd. Start to calve around the 6th of February. 83% of the cows calve in 6 weeks, and we're finished calving towards the end of April. The farm, as you see there on the map, goes from sea level right down at the very bottom of the map to the very top of the map is 600 feet.
And in terms of soil type, Richard, what's it like? Is it basically a dry farm, or?
There would be a mixture down at the very bottom now with flood, and just there above that would be fairly dry, and across the road would be fairly dry. The wettest part of the farm would be around the farmyard itself. Further up to the top of the hill we go, it'll be drier again. But like, there's always plenty of opportunities to get cows out when the weather's right. Perfect.
So I suppose, look, we just have a slide here, just I suppose presenting Richard's 2019 milk production. So if you just look down there, what you can see is that fat and protein, kgs and milk solids, 558 for this is 2019. That's in the top 5% in the co-op. Litres a day, 17. Fat and protein as well, and I suppose the protein is the exceptional one there. 3.9% average protein in the herd, and that's in the top 1% in the crop. So, Richard, might just give us an idea of typically across the year, what kind of protein percentages would you be getting in?
At the lowest, I would say, kind of when the cows are getting to their peak, would probably go down to about 3.65. 3.65 would probably be our lowest, and then our highest. Then when we get towards the September, October time, we could about 4.5.
Yeah, and like, look, I suppose the production there, Richard, is excellent. In terms of how much meal would you be feeding in a year, Richard?
In 2019, anyway, we fed about 1.1 tons.
Okay.
We had a very wet August and September that last year, and I would say on a normal year, normal weather, if we get it again, we'd be chatting about 800 or 900 kilos.
Okay.
But we'll always feed the cows when we have to, but there's no point in going on putting on a whole lot of meal. If the weather's wrong, you have to go and put on bales as well, because you need something there to hold everything in their stomach.
Okay, so what you mean by that, Richard, is maybe in the back end of the year, if the weather breaks, like you get a wet September, how much meal would you feed, and then you'd bring in bales? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we'd feed maybe, if the weather went wrong in the beginning of September, like what it did this year, we might have fed 6 kilos of meal per day, but bales as well, because the grass dry matter would have been down at maybe 12 or 13%.
Okay. That's perfect. And I suppose, Michelle, I might just ask you for a comment in terms of 2020 production. How's the farm looking now? Is it going to be ahead or behind of 2019 figures?
Yeah, it's already going to be ahead. His EBI changed within a month ago, so yeah, they're hitting targets, and it's going to be well ahead for next year.
Okay, thanks. So I suppose that's the other thing on the farm that maybe we've touched on, and in terms of the production, the herd EBI there. So the graph that you're looking at there, Richard's herd is the red bars, and the national average figures are in the grey bars. So you can see, going from the left of the screen, his fifth lactation animals, plus down to his calves, all well above the national average. And I think 181, Richard, is the overall EBI at the moment. So I suppose you might just fill everyone in terms of how you make breeding decisions and what type of cow you have on the farm.
Well, on the latest run there, came out a few days ago, the herd is actually up at 191 on EBI.
Okay.
With Muck-Sub index of 64 and fertility of 84. Maintenance of 15 and health of 4. We're always breeding. We only breed to the top half of the herd to freezing. The lower half of the herd on EBI get bred to Hereford and Angus. And I would pick my selection of bulls, and I'm kind of manually match them to the cows. They always have a good calf out of the cow to do the unbreeding, then on the ICBF.
Yeah, and I suppose a topical thing around breeding the last couple of months has been use of genomic bulls, Richard. What do you use genomic bulls, and will you continue to use genomic bulls?
Yeah, we use genomic bulls every year, maybe 10 or 11 bulls every year. I think there's always a few bulls might go down, but whenever you're using such a big number of bulls, I think it's a 1-1 situation.
Yeah. And in terms of cow size, what size would your cows be, Richard?
You're probably chatting on around 600 kilos.
Perfect, yeah. And you're not going to move away from the black and white high EBI Holstein. You haven't considered crossbreeding or anything like that, Richard?
I think with what performance we're getting out of them now, I think with the weather and all the rest, we're able to feed them in when inside or with bales or whatever, whenever the weather's wrong. And like this year, the predicted fat and protein, like milk solids, is over 600,
yeah,
at over 4% protein. Like, so, why would you go looking elsewhere when you're getting it with what you have?
Absolutely, yeah, fair point. So I suppose just moving on, then we can just look at the progress over time that Richard's herd has made. So the graph here just looks from 2015 up to 2020, and we can see that the herd EBI in Richard's herd has consistently been above the national average, but is continuing to keep that way. And like Richard's EBI, it's actually the highest EBI in the whole Aurivo area. So it just shows you the level of effort that's been put into animal breeding on the farm. I suppose just the graph here shows calf and pattern. And Richard, you might just fill us in terms of very compact spring calf and herd. Richard, it's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, it would be. Yeah, we try to keep it as compact as possible. Like we have we monitors on all the cows, and we AI the whole way through the breeding season. We don't use bulls at all. We do put tail paint on as well, just to be sure to get the right time for AI and all.
Yeah, no, I mean, in terms of, and we're going to touch on it later, maybe in terms of farm labour, one of the reasons some farmers don't like the compact calving is the extra workload. How do you manage, like you have a lot of cows calving there, you can see over 50% of the cows are going to calf in February next year, so, or did calf in February, so how do you manage that, Richard?
Well, there's myself and there's a full-time labour unit here, and the children are there, and the fellas that help us there at the weekends, and we get a student in every year, and there's always usually plenty of help.
Perfect. I suppose moving on to the grassland management in Richard, the farm I think grew 14.4 tons of dry matter, which would be well above the average in the region, and indeed well above the national average. You're grass measuring, Richard, every week, are you?
Grass measuring every week, yeah. That's very, very important. Like to have the right cover of a sward ahead of the cows between 12 and 1400 all the time. I think that's where a lot of the good proteins comes out of. You don't have this old stemmy grass in the middle of the summer and proteins getting badly hit.
And to maintain quality in the sward, you're removing surplus bales, or is it topping or primo, and how do you keep quality in the mid-season?
We don't do any topping at all. We tried this year to do a wee bit of pre-mowing. It's just mainly on areas of fields that cows would lie on more. To save having to dig out the whole field for bales, all of the field for bales, we would just cut the bit where they normally dirty and lie, and it worked well, like on a dry time.
Yeah.
And just cleaned up the field a wee bit, and most of us taken out now with surplus bales.
Okay.
Every paddock, as you can see on the graph there, has been cut at some stage during the year.
Yeah, so just as Richard said there, I should have explained it. The green part of the graph, that indicates grazing yield, and the yellow part indicates silage yield. So as Richard said, all the paddocks in the farm have been pushed at least once on that, and I suppose you can see a very even distribution of grass growth across the farm. So in terms of reseeding and soil fertility, Richard, what are you doing there? Is there a lot of reseeding being done on the farm?
There's some bits to be done, all right. We would soil fertility, test the farm a third of it every year, every 3 years, and we have a test for every single field. We don't go on this 5 hectare that you're meant to have for your irrigation or whatever. We have a test for every field, and we know exactly what every field has to get then every year.
And in terms of reseeding, Richard, you're doing more. Are you doing much reseeding every year?
We reseeded a good bit of the silage ground on the out farm there last year, and we intend doing maybe about 2 or 3 hectares now in 2020 of the cow ground, and a few bits that aren't just doing what I would like them to do.
And I suppose one of the other things, your farm is involved in the monoculture trial with cloggers, I believe.
Yeah.
See different varieties on the farm. Is there anything you've seen from that would indicate varieties that might suit the region in Donegal better, or what's your thoughts on diploids and tetraploids?
Well, there's a variety we have there, Torella, and I know down the country that a lot of the fields it has died out, and a lot of the fields down. But I think it doesn't like dry weather. It'll be very shallow rooted, and it seems to, if you do get a lot of dry weather, it'll pull out. And we seem to get on quite well with it. Like,
yeah,
we have Majestic as well, and Abergain. Abergain is a very good variety, but 16 days there in the middle of the growth period, or even less, you need to be back into it again, or one day one day too much, and you have to take it out for bales.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine. Richard, I suppose, just moving on, and I suppose I'll bring Magella in here as well. In terms of environmental practices, Magella, that was a big part, I suppose, of the judging panel, and Richard is doing a lot of stuff on that.
Yeah, so Richard covers a lot of areas in biodiversity, his hedgerows. He will tell you there in a minute about his hedgerows, what he does with those, how he keeps his low emission slurry spreading, using protected urea. He has solar panels. He's reduced his energy bill. He is always forward thinking. He actually has a system in place which has 3 lights to ensure that nothing is leaking on the farm. So he's always preserving water. So the lights go on when the cows are drinking, and if there's anything leaking or there's any leaks around the farm, he knows immediately. So the attention to detail in every single area, including he's in the ASAP program, the ONAS program, he's in all the different programs trying to continuously improve every area of the farm.
So just bringing it back there, Magella, to the ASAP program, like I know you're obviously very involved in it. What's that program trying to achieve, I suppose, in the wider area?
To protect the water quality and improve the water quality in the area, while the dairy farmers are still, all farmers are farming on a daily basis, but always having water quality at the forefront of their mind.
Yeah, perfect. And I might just bring you in there, Richard. I suppose 2 of the big ticket issues for dairy farming are low emission slurry spreading and protected urea. You're doing both of those. How are you getting on with them, Richard?
With the low emission slurry spreading, we started doing that 3.5 years ago, and we have still got the spread plate on the tanker, but we never ever use it. It's just so nice and clean and tidy, clean grass, and you having when the tanker's empty, it's not blowing around everywhere. And we've used protected urea now. This is our 2nd year to use it, and we can't see any difference. Like,
yeah,
I'll put on our P's and K's as well, like as our protected urea.
So you've no problem switching over to protected urea. So you think it'll be, because it is something the whole industry is going to have to.
Yeah, no, there's no problem doing it.
Yeah.
Richard also has his ASAP report done, voluntary. So a Teagasc advisor came out and did his report, and he is starting to work and has worked through the whole report as well to improve his water quality.
So could you just give us an example of some of the things that Richard has done? And look, those things are applicable to all our milk suppliers. Magella, what sort of things has he done to protect water quality?
Have a look at his drainage, all his areas, his runoff, what's actually going on in the farm, the access to the rivers. And then when the Teagasc advisor came out, he went through his entire plan with him, and he's put a few different areas in place, and he has a plan on going forward. So you might want to stay there, Richard, just on what you were doing just by the river.
I like down beside on the ground at floods and stuff, or all the drains, we have to fence them all off. Make sure that the cattle can't get into any drains to drink, and things like that. And with lanes and stuff like that, make sure there isn't a lot of runoff off dirty lanes or anything onto water courses. Keep the lanes clean, and maybe places there where there is a good wee bit of a run, you have to put on a bale or something to filter the runoff.
Because you do have a very steep farm, Richard, it's fair to say.
Yeah,
like we'll have lots of little riverlets and fields where there's a very big steep gradient. Yeah.
It'll not be simple. It'll something we're going to have to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I suppose moving on then, Richard. I mean, you've a large herd of cows. In terms of labour, then you have put in a couple of different things in terms of new monitors, a grafting gate for sorting cows, an auto calf feeder, and a collecting yard. If you were to look, would you say all of those things have saved time and are worth the money or worth the investment? Because some of them are high capital cost.
Yeah, I couldn't do without any of those now. The last thing we done there last year was the collecting yard, and there's a gate on it that comes round as a circular collecting yard. and you pull a cord on the milking parlour, like, and the gate will move around so far. And every time you change a row, you put the gate round a bit. And whenever the last few cows go to come on, they're just at the back of the milking parlour, not away out. That you have to get away out and walk away to get them, like. And the automatic calf feeder too, like, it was I took one labour unit out of the calf shed, put in an automatic calf feeder.
And do the calves in the calf shed have access to a field, or are they weaned inside in the shed?
They can. There's 2 doors in the back of the calf shed, and they can go out if weather is suitable, like at any time from when they're 10 days old, if they can, like. It all depends on the weather.
Perfect, yeah. Thanks very much. Richard, is there anything you want to add on those labour saving tools on the farm, or from your own experience out on farms?
Yeah, no, I'd say Richard's very adaptable to all new technology. He uses pasture-based, Kingswood, anything that can help him to be more labour efficient and more efficient on the farm to get in and get out and keep a work-life balance. He's very adaptable to. So it just proves it there. He's continuously investing in his business, and he's continuously working on every area of it.
Perfect. I suppose we're going to, the awards are about milk quality, and I suppose this is an area that's very important in terms of controlling mastitis on farm, in terms of the regulations that are coming down in terms of antibiotics. So, like Richard, obviously, because he won the award, you have very good control of mastitis on your farm. You might just walk us through how you're doing that at the different stages. What are the steps you're taking?
Well, there's milk record in there. Last year and the year before, we recorded 4 times throughout the year. This year, we're actually doing that this evening. That's our 5th time. Just thought that the last recording got too far away from some of the drying off. So we go through all the reports, like, and there's a somatic cell count report there in ICBF, and it gives you a good, clear message of what cows are running high in cell counts all through the year and what aren't. And we take 150,000, anything under that there throughout the year, like lactation, will not give them antibiotics. Maybe there'll be a few cows might be a bit higher than that there, and we just know the cow that they didn't take mastitis and stuff. We might put sealer on them only as well. Like last year, we used 26 cows got antibiotics out of, say, 140. The other 20 would have been cull cows. And this year, it'll be 26 or less, depending on how this recording goes now.
Yeah.
And,
so that's obviously like it's where probably the whole industry needs to be going in terms of use of antibiotics. But like Magella, I think, mentioned it earlier on, in terms of facilities, the milking routine in the parlour, Richard, you have a large parlour, I think a 22-unit parlour. But what's the routine in there in terms of managing mastitis?
If any cow would take mastitis, she gets 2 bands put on her leg, 2 red bands. And that means if anybody, I'm not on about the antibiotics, it's just the contamination. If anybody would handle that cow, wipe her or anything like that, they have to clean themselves and clean the cluster as well. Before it goes on to the next cow. That's why I intend next year and putting on a cluster flush system, that all clusters will be flushed between cows.
And what's the T-tip you're using at the moment, or the post-tip you're using at the moment, Richard? And do you do any pre-dipping?
We might pre-dip any of the ones with bands on them that are higher cell count cows. And we're using Dio's anti foam at the minute.
Okay.
I would change to a better dip for teat condition in the summertime, in the springtime and summertime.
So it's a dip rather than a spray you're using, Richard, is it?
It's a spray, yeah.
Oh, it's a spray, yes. Yeah. So you spray it on in the. And look, I suppose this time of year when you're milking on cubicles, what are you using on the cubicles, Richard, for bedding, and how often are they cleaned and bedded?
They're bedded. Cubicles are scraped down twice a day, and better either once or twice, depending on when they need it. It's a mixture of lime and sawdust. And just going back to the selective dry cow therapy, going on the quad performance reports when they started, like back in 2013, our cell count hasn't really gone up any more since we started to use the selective dry cow treatment. Like I'd say the biggest thing of the whole lot is be sure your cubicles are kept clean for your dry cows, bedded every day and cleaned every day.
So once the cows are dry, Richard, they're also being bedded every day, those cubicles.
Yeah, we make no difference between them and the milking cows.
Yeah.
Like we have a right-on scraper there, like, and we scrape all the slats too.
Yeah. So it's just about keeping the whole environment very clean. Is that what you're...
Yeah. That's right.
It's every area that the cows are in. I suppose, Michelle, I might just bring you in, if we widen it out a small bit. If I'm a milk supplier sitting at home watching this and I'm thinking about selective dry cow, what are the things I need to have in place before I can do it, like, or do it successfully?
Well, firstly, I suppose you need to have to be looking at your environment there, as Richard was saying. So Richard has all the basics perfect. All the basics is perfect. The cubicles, you know, he's liming them, and the main area is hygiene. So he's that perfect. So the next thing he needs to look at now is to have his milk recording data. So he gets his milk recording done, and he starts looking at his milk recording data and checks out what his cows are doing, what their cell counts are, and where is each cow situated in the herd. So that's the first steps to be looking at. Milk recording and hygiene and environmental practices and what you're doing coincide with each other.
Yeah. So if I have a bulk tank averaging for the year for 250, should I be considering selective dry cow?
Yeah, but you need to have your milk recording data for at least 4 to 5 milk recordings before you would be looking at anything. And then when you do have your milk recording data, you then need to look at your actual farm practices. So what's going on, cubicle space, liming, hygiene, and then assess the whole lot together as a whole.
I suppose just going back to you, I suppose one of the things that we're always hearing about when we're selective dry cow is the actual procedure of drying the cows off. When we're in the pit drying them off, Richard, we have to be so clean. Like, how do you approach that for the cows that are not getting antibiotics?
There was a survey a few weeks ago, a Chagas survey, and it said, do you treat the cows that aren't getting antibiotics any different to the cows that are getting antibiotics? We do the same with every cow. First of all, we do about 16 maybe at a time, 15 or 16 in the milking parlour, and we clean them all with teat dip and paper first. Clean all the teat dip and paper. This is not during milking. We'll have the milking done, and this could be at 10 o'clock. The cows could be standing in the yard maybe for an hour or so after the milking until we get our tea and all. And we put them in, and sure all their feet and all are clean. Wash them with a hose, and clean all their teats with teat dip and paper. Then we use still the same paper and methylated spirits. I buy it by the gallon drum. And I start on every cow with a bit of paper and methylated spirits, and do the furthest away 2 teats first, and clean the point of them well. And before the next thing I do then, I have a wee egg cup, and I pour methylated spirits into it, and I splash it round the point of every teat to make sure there's isn't any loose stuff there. And then I get my 4 sealers and put them on, starting at the 2 back teats first, then teat sprayer then.
Perfect, Richard. Yeah.
Stand in the yard then maybe for half an hour or an hour then before they go to the cubicles.
Yeah, and the cubicles in are very clean as well.
Yeah.
On top of that. I suppose the other thing and it's something the Co-op have developed this year, is a culture and sensitivity testing a program that's available to all milk suppliers. What's up there in the front of the screen is actually Richard's culture and sensitivity testing. Michelle, you just might walk us through why you're doing it and what Richard's results mean in front of us.
Yeah, so the reason why we're doing it is to see what type of bacteria is actually in the environment, what are the cows getting infected with that have mastitis, and how can we, I suppose, make it a better environment and try and target the bacteria. So if you look here to the left hand side, there, the first and the second numbers is there. The third number is actually the tag numbers of the cows. So each cow has got tested there for a list, the next line over.
So that's 3 cows, Nadella, there in front of us. 3 cows.
Yeah, there's 3 cows. Yeah, sorry, 3 cows. So the top one, the second one, and the third one. You can see the list of antibiotics to the left-hand side there. So you can see each one, and you can see sensitive, 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 and then we have cloxacillin on the top one there. We have cloxacillin CS. So that's resistant. So that's the active ingredient within the tube. So that active ingredient will not work on that cow. The next one here, you can see down, we have limited sensitivity. So basically that's going to work so far, will cure the cow to a certain extent, but then the bacteria will overcome the antibiotic and it'll then become reinfected. So it only works to a certain extent. The limited sensitivity will only work and it's just about to go resistant. So that's basically what that is. So you would be staying away from that neomycin. Penicillin is sensitive. And the yellow is sensitive as well, so they will work. So you're looking to find out what will work, what will not work, and what is going to work so far to an extent where it'll kill the majority of the bacteria, but then the bacteria will overcome the antibiotic and it will become resistant. So this is just an example. You can see here then Strep uberis and E. coli. So this is where it identifies the type of bacteria that is actually in the environment, or Strep uberis living on the skin of the cow. So with cell count problems, this is really important because this tells us what type of antibiotic to use or can be used on this cow, and it'll also tell you what type of, is it contagious or an environmental bacteria. So I just wanted to go quickly over that. It's different on every farm, and you can see there's 3 cows there, so it's different in every cow. You can see there's some resistant. Down the bottom there, you have cloxacillin, and it's completely resistant as well. So it's just an example for all the farmers to see. Richard uses this. He's building up a bank now at the moment to see, well, what's resistant, what's working, and what's my big main areas on bacteria.
Richard, do you find it useful, this kind of information, and would it have any of the results surprised you?
Not really. That's why I went down the selective dry therapy route 3 years ago, because see, like that first cow 109 there, like she's resistant to cloxacillin. If you keep going giving the cows antibiotics every year when they don't need it, you'll have far more of those column, it'll say resistant, and limited sensitivity. You'll have far more of that. Then you have nothing to go for then if you have them all, if she's resistant to them, a lot of them, like.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, yeah.
They're going to run on the bother.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a challenge for the industry, the antimicrobial resistance. So yeah, that fair point. So I suppose that's Richard's presentation in terms of the things he's done. We have a couple of questions in. The first question, Richard, is regards when you're selecting bulls, what criteria for kgs of milk solids do you use? Like, what does the bull have to be at for you to use them in terms of kgs of milk solids?
I select nothing below my herd average.
Okay.
And I would try to keep the milk kgs down and around 100, if not below.
Yeah.
There's some bulls out there, milk kgs would be up over 300. That's not what I want. That's too much dilution. And say whenever I select my bulls above my herd average,
yeah,
I'll match them up. I'll match them up the NDC whenever I'm matching the bull up to the cow. For one that's low and one that's high, etc., like that there.
So if you have a cow that maybe has lower protein or low protein potential, you'll put a bull with a high PD for protein on her.
That's right.
You match them around like that. So you spend a bit of time matching cows to bulls.
It doesn't. A few hours. Some evening. I know at the springtime it's a busy time of the year, but you nearly always get a few hours to do that, and it gets you good quality calves on the ground.
Yeah, and I think the proof is in the breeding of the herd to be at 600 kgs of milk solids and nearly 4% protein. Like, I mean, there's obviously something very right with the breeding of the cows. Like, so absolutely, like, as breeding is permanent and additive, so it's well worth spending the time on that. I suppose we're going to move on now to to Paul Cullinan. Paul is the new quality advisor in Donegal, and Paul is just going to, I suppose, go through, I suppose, managing TBCs and thermogenic bacteria with the proviso that we don't have chlorine detergents anymore due to the build-up of TCMs in our cream. So I'll hand it over to Paul there now.
Thanks, Vincent. No, I suppose with any, I suppose just to keep in mind, like where there's muck, there's bacteria, and to keep that, so if we can cut down the muck, we can cut down the bacteria levels, both what we call total bacteria counts, and also we can influence the thermogenic levels. And that all starts with the cow, you know, and leads on then to the milking machine, and finally the bulk tank. What does affect TBCs and things like that are the temperature and the cooling. So if we just move on to the cow there, Vincent, sorry.
You might, just for everyone, Paul, the difference between TBCs and thermogenics, Paul.
Basically what TBC are total bacteria counts, basically. What thermogenic bacteria are, they're a specific type of bacteria, they're psychotropes, they resist pasteurization. So basically, when they come into the plant, the pasteurization doesn't kill them, and they survive in the milk. They're in the milk. And the one thing about thermos, and there's different types basically, but they'll sit there in the milk until day maybe 7 or day maybe 8, and then they kick off and multiply at an alarming rate, and leaves that milk with a funny taste, or what we call the cartons start blowing up and things like that. They start expanding, and it can be anything. So they're the kind of bacteria we can do nothing about once they're in the milk. We can't take them out. We can't heat them or heat treat them to reduce them or to kill them or anything like that. So it's once they're in the milk. So the only thing we can do is eliminate them at farm level. Contaminating it causes processing levels. If we were producing cheese, it would destroy all the cheeses, and the cheese wouldn't form and wouldn't ferment right. So I suppose why it's in talk at the minute, or maybe in vogue, is that in the last number of years chlorine has been banned, or we can't use it, and it is causing challenges at farm level because we have to change routine. Anytime you change a routine, it causes trouble. So what we have to do with the concentration, the caustic levels have been increased, more hot washes have to be used, and more acid washes have to be used. I suppose that basically farms have to change the routine, and what they have to do is, put it simply, do more hot washes, do more acid washes, and you will be able to have the low levels the likes of Richard can achieve consistently. The other thing where chlorine was used in the past is a sterilant, maybe for sterilizing plants and sterilizing water and things like that. Now we have a product that we use is peracetic acid, and this has to be used. This can be used in the final rinse to achieve the same as the chlorine, but it has to be used probably in different ways. So Vincent, if we go back, I suppose everything starts with the cow, and I suppose the cleaner that cow is coming into the milking parlour, the less dirt that's going to be in, that she's going to bring in with her, and the easier it is to milk. That involves like having clean yards, as Richard is out there, scraping the cubicles twice a day, things like that. Like, it is very important that that cow is as clean as she can be. The other thing that a lot of people sometimes forget about is clipping cows' tails or singeing off the hairs on the udders. They're little tricks that can help that cow be cleaner. So it's not just her fault. Like, if you have the yard you have, or the lameness maybe, but if you can do this to the cow, she'll be a lot cleaner coming in. And then cleaner cows are going to end up with cleaner milkers. Because if the cows are all mucky, the milker's going to end up mucky, and he's going to pass it on to other cows, as put bacteria and muck all over the place. So it starts with the cow, then we move on to teat preparation, and that dry wiping where possible. Dirty cows have to be washed, and that's it, but they have to be dried then again. And there's a little, this is a trial that was done in Moore Park back in 2007. And just what I'd like to take from this is that, you know, the cleaner the cow, the more preparation that's put into that cow and having her cleaner, the better your TBC is going to be. We can see at the top there, you know, the milk coming from that cow starts with a TBC of 3, or thermal levels of 10, and with no preparation, just slapping on the cluster, you know, you're starting with TBCs of 10. Like, and remember, bacteria will double every 20 minutes at 18 degrees, you know, so the more preparation or a bit more time put into the cow side of it, the less trouble you're going to have following on from TBCs, or less work that's going to have to be done afterwards. Better the quality of the milk. I suppose it starts with the milking machine. Regular service, like we've got bigger plants and we've got faster and they're working harder and things like that. And this is one area now maybe that has been neglected a little bit. You know, this is a machine, this is the most important machine on your yard, and it does need to be serviced regularly. The tractors are more advanced and they get more attention than the milking machine, but the milking machine is the one that's making the money. But I would say at least once a year and maybe twice a year, I'd say, with the bigger machines and things like that are more complicated. Talk to your serviceman and get them out to do it. Another issue that comes up the odd time is, do I remove the milk sock? Do I not remove the milk sock? What I'm suggesting on this one is, with the reusable milk socks, after the first rinse, take out the sock, rinse it off, and then put it in if you want it for the washes. With the disposable socks, take them off at the end of milking, or definitely after the first rinse, because any muck or any soil or any things that are held up in the milk sock is going to react with your detergent, and the detergent is not going to work on the plant. But I would say with the milking machines, we've cold washes and hot washes. The one thing to always remember with your hot wash is to dump straight away afterwards and rinse straight away afterwards. And as I said before, like we have to do more descaling. Yes, some plants are going from once a week to twice a week. Some very sophisticated plants with a lot of accessories like milk meters and different things like that, they've had to go to descaling once a day even, in very hard water areas. But we'll come to a bit more on that. Sanitizers are available. Peracetic acid is the active ingredient, and use them in the final rinses, at the end of the final rinses. Just a word of caution about auto washers. It is important that you talk to your serviceman about the auto washers and have them set correctly. Too often the fitter puts in the auto washer and then plugs the two pipes into the drums of chemical and they're forgotten about. But it does take a little bit of work with the farmer, a joint cooperation between the farmer and the serviceman to make sure that they're calibrated and they're lifting the correct amount of detergent. And then it's up to the farmer then to make sure that there's always detergent there for them to use, and to keep an eye on it. I suggest marking the drums of chemical just to make sure that they are being used every now and again, just that, and no harm maybe to put them into a jug and make sure that it's lifting the correct amount on the auto washers. So always going back, so we start with the first rinse, and the first rinse, the most important rinse, because it removes all the milk. At least 10 to 12 litres of water per unit. A lot of parlours have been extended and have got bigger and the whole lot, and the wash tracks have been forgotten about. I would suggest, if you don't know the size of your wash track tonight, tomorrow, put it on your to-do list and measure that wash track. Get a bucket and fill the wash track and find out how much it is, and then write that figure on the wash track. And what you need then is 10 litres for every unit you have, 10 to 12 minutes. So you rinse that through. This removes all the milk. When that milk is washed out of the system, or if it's not washed out of the system, it will neutralise your detergent, and your detergent will not be effective. It's important that detergent hits the biofilms on the plant, not the milk that's left in the lines. Thanks, Vince. So most of us are doing cold circulation with caustic, and that's the most routine one that's done. So you wash the outside of the clusters, wash the jetters, things like that first. Do not be washing these during the wash cycle, because you only wash the power washers and heavy washers will wash them up into the lines. Rinse, as I said before, to 10 to 12 or up to 14 litres of water. And then you put in your caustic detergent in another 10 litres, and circulate for up to 10 minutes, nothing longer. Make it up at the correct level. Now, in the past, and with smaller plants, people have left this on the plant for the day and then rinsed it off before milking. With bigger plants with more add-ons, I would suggest rinsing it straight away and dumping it straight away. That's what I would say. And in the last half of the rinse water, the final rinse, you can use a drop of peracetic acid if you want to sterilize the plant. Your hot wash, what I would say on this is, same thing, rinse the plant, remove all that excess milk that's in the plant, then run your hot water and milkstone remover through it. Some plants will need at least twice a week, 3 times a week. In very hard water areas, this may be even, you might need to go once a day with this, but you do need to do it. What the acid does, it removes any of the buildup of minerals on the plant and things like that. And it's important now, this is starting well over 70 degrees. So you're starting about 76 degrees and dumping it then once it's hitting 56, 55 degrees. At this time of year, like today, and cold days like today, that might be 5 minutes. When weather's a bit warmer, 7 to 8 minutes. But once, if it's going any longer than that, it's getting too cold and it's just smothering the grease back on the plant again. And as I said before, flush then immediately afterwards with 12, 14 litres of cold water immediately straight afterwards. On your tanks, most tanks now have automatic washers on it. This doesn't mean that they should be forgotten about. What I would say is, like, check that your washer is working, check that it's removing all the plant. Look into the tank every now and again. The bigger tanks now, it's important to climb up them steps and have a little look into it after it's washed and see, is there any scale buildup or anything like that in the plant. If there is, then you check your pumps that are actually taking in the detergent and check that there is actually detergent in the drums. Too often these drums are kind of filled and then forgotten about. Another thing is to make sure that there's enough hot water to wash the tanks. With the bigger tanks, the boilers mightn't be big enough. There mightn't be enough water there to do a hot wash in the plant and on the tank. So maybe you need to alternate this or maybe check this out. And it's important every now and again to give the outlets of the tank a little brush, wash around the outside of the tank, wash around the outlets and up around the lid too. It is important to look at it. Put up there power washers. Power washers are not effective at cleaning tanks. It is important that there is detergent got in there and it is working correctly all the time. Power washers might have a little bit of hot water or something like that if you're using that, but not as effective at washing tanks. You, Vincent? Rubberware, every plant has some of it somewhere. The newer plants have less and less of it, so no harm at all because stainless steel is easier to clean than rubberware. But it is important that this rubber is not there forever. It does break down. Chemicals react with it and things like that. It doesn't last forever, and sunlight and things like that react with the rubber. So it is important that this is upgraded. Just because you change maybe the liners, that there is other parts of the plant that need to be looked at as well. Long milk tubes, short milk tube, pulse tubes, rubber bends, some of the older plants, the diaphragm pumps, gaskets, jetters and things like that. So you have to look at this rubber, and if you're checking this rubber and things like that, basically if it's coming black off on your gloved hand or anything like that, the inside of the rubber is gone, it needs to be replaced. Chemicals in the past have reacted with the rubber and caused damage to it. So it is important then that you replace the rubber. Thanks, Vincent. Here's a few little things that I would say to help wash routine. The first thing is to develop a routine. Get your results, keep an eye on results and get them down, and then write down that routine that's working for you. We have different farms with different water types, different wash troughs, different size plants and things like that with different add-ons. So just one procedure is not the same for everybody. The basics are the same, but it is important that you do write down that routine. I saw this on Richard's farm, but I also saw on a few other farms where the actual routine is written down and written up. That ensures that everybody working that machine or washing up that machine is going to do it consistently and do it the same. And it's just to keep in the routine. And if you're getting in relief milkers, and we all are, or if there's different people in washing, it takes the thinking out of it. So it ensures that when you come back, that everything has been carried on as you wished and that it's working correctly. The other thing too, measure accurately. There's no point in picking up the drum and throwing in a shot of whatever comes out of it, or putting in 1 scoop today or 2 scoops tomorrow, and this kind of thing. Measure accurately. Don't worry, the detergent companies have things well prescribed, so I wouldn't be going exceeding it. Simple thing like a measuring jug make life awful easier, or as I say, and writing down what has to go in. You can see there on the thing on the left there that it's just 2 drums, and it's written down exactly what has to go in each day, which makes things an awful lot simpler. And consistent, so there's a step-by-step procedure that everyone should follow.
That's great, Paul. I think that's a very thorough run through that. There's a couple of questions that come in. Paul, I suppose just to kick it off, Paul, powder caustic detergent or liquid caustic detergent? Paul, what's your thoughts on that? Considering we can't use chlorine anymore.
Farmers, like the liquid detergents seem to be working all right, but they do have to be dumped straight away and things like that, no reuse. Now, some people have come back to powder detergents and find them that little bit better. They don't work with auto washers or things like that. So, but either or will work correctly if used correctly.
Powdered ones are stronger though, is that fair to say?
Yeah,
They'll have a higher caustic percentage.
Higher caustic percentage, and farmers are getting them a little bit better results with the powder, with the R-Better powder.
In terms of a question has come up there, number of pumps, Paul, that's required for non-chlorine cleaning. Do tanks and auto washers need a third pump to lift paracetic acid to clean or to sterilize?
Yeah, they do with automatic washers and the tanks. If you need paracetic acid in the final rinse and things like that, yeah, they will need the third pump.
Perfect. Yeah. So I suppose it's important for everyone to keep in mind. Let's buy a new equipment to make sure they're getting the third pump put on, but they can be retrofitted as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All the
and in terms of hot water to wash the plant, Paul, what's the recommendation? 2%? Is it, Paul, per the volume of the tank?
Yeah, but 2% of the volume of the tank will cover that. It is important with the hot water to make sure that your boiler is able to, or you have two boilers, maybe one for the plant and one for the tank, or else you have to use them on alternate days. Okay. So it's important that there is hot water, or if you're feeding calves in springtime, that you are leaving water to wash that tank. That's why some farmers prefer the night collection, because there's always water to wash the tank and it's always getting the hot wash. So.
And Paul, any comment, Paul, on different types of hot water? Like there's diesel, there's kerosene, electric. What are you seeing on farms?
I suppose traditionally it would have been all electric. In the last number of years, with newer plant, they are moving back to oil or moving to electric and gas as well out there. I would say each farmer make sure he's an adequate supply, big enough supply, and what I would say, particularly with bigger parlours, particularly when we go above the normal 8, 10, 12 unit parlour, it is more, you're looking for higher volumes, and the diesel, the kerosene powder, or the kerosene plants, or the oil or gas would be more efficient and be a lot cheaper to run than your electric boiler.
And there's just a question in, but I see the picture up of a thermometer there to measure the heat of the water, be at the start or at the end. What kind of thermometers are you using for that, Paul?
Well, any kind of thermometer really can be used, but it's important that they're actually used. A lot of farmers kind of assume that the water is hot enough, and I have seen farmers putting in, thinking the water was high enough, and it's only gone in what it should be coming out at, it's gone in at about 50 degrees, and really should be being dumped at that stage, The other thing too with the bigger plants, and I forgot to mention it, there is, with the bigger plants now, they're pre-rinsing the plant with hot water to warm up the plant, warm up the stainless steel. And as the bigger plants go in, that will be needed as well, and you will need more hot water to do that. So it is important to keep that in mind.
Thanks, Paul. Let's bring in Richard there now. I suppose, look, the non-chlorine is an issue, and you have been non-chlorine for a number of years. Is that right, Richard?
I started in 2019. I cut my chlorine use by half, and beginning of 2020, I cut it out, the chlorine out totally. But as Paul said there, it's very important to have your hot water temperature right, starting off at 75 and been dumping it then at around 54 or so. That's just an ordinary food thermometer I have that you see in the photograph. I got that there in a place that sells stuff for the food industry, and it's waterproof and all, and you just stick it under the water and it tells you the temperature. And like today, as Paul said, 5 minutes the water has to be dumped. It's just cool so quick. When we do preheat as well, we'll not put in our acid till the water's coming back warm enough.
What type of water heating system have you, Richard?
It's electric and a heat exchanger as well. From the milk tank heats it as well, and the solar panels will heat it during the day whenever the weather's suitable.
Yeah. And so like you have 9 months or 10 months this stage of being totally non-chlorine. You're happy that you can clean the plant properly without chlorine.
It can, yeah. We used to always use muckstone remover once a week. It is either a Saturday one week and a Sunday the next week. We've gone now every second hot wash. We do a hot wash every second day. The milk tank gets hot water one day and the milking machine gets it the other day. But every second hot wash on the plant is a muckstone remover.
Okay, perfect. Paul, just a question in there for you. What is the thermo test to be under?
1,000. We'd like to see them under 1,000. Between 1,000 and 2,000, then there's issues there building up on the plant. But really, if you can keep it, farmers need to keep it under 1,000. And that can be achieved, like, very easily. But it does take the procedures, keep the routine right, and keep the rubberware changed. And that's the biggest thing out there on farm is rubberware and scale that are causing it. And then eliminating the dirt before that from the cows. Once if a farmer can hit them 3 things, like thermos aren't an issue on farm.
Just a question in there as well, Paul. Why should the milk filter be removed? Is there a danger you could block the plate cooler if you don't have it in during the wash?
Yeah, I suppose it's kind of a chicken and egg situation. Like the first thing I take out the filter because it's full of whatever you've collected during milking, basically dirt and things like that. And if it's left in, then your detergent is going to react with that and it's not going to wash your plant. The bigger plants, what I would say is take out the filter, particularly the reusable filter socks, rinse them off, and then maybe put them back in for the wash if you're worried about your plate cooler and things like that.
Yeah.
Or put in a new sock for washing or after the first rinse, to prevent anything going into your plate cooler.
I suppose it goes without saying, Paul, not to reuse the disposable filters.
No, disposable filters are disposable.
On that front, we have the reusable filters, but we keep one for the wash up only, and we put 2 on then, always for the milking.
Okay.
See, always the same filter that we keep for the wash up, and like it just keeps any dirt from going into the plate cooler.
Yeah, and just on the reusable socks, they have to be stored in peracetic acid between milkings. Yeah. They do need to be put in there, like, they can't be just rinsed off and left. They do need to be stuck in peracetic.
Yeah, so they also need to be in a 2% solution of peracetic acid between milking, not just left in the dairy because bacteria will grow on the...
Bacteria will grow. It's a great spot for bacteria to grow. I mean, it's just ideal. Wet moisture and a bit of dirt. That's all they want.
Perfect. Okay, we've just hit 9 o'clock, and I think all the questions that we had are answered. So I think that I'm going to wrap it